When you see all those videos on Kensington Avenue, yes, the same Kensington Avenue, where who was it? I think Obama was talking on behalf of Fetterman in Pennsylvania. And they were, I think, 3 miles away from Pennsylvania Avenue. And while that was going on, the whole stumping for Fetterman, had a shooting on Pennsylvania Avenue, 9 people hit. Yeah, not good. All right. The other thing about this kind of area, Kensington Avenue in Philadelphia, is xylazine. That is what we're talking about today. When you see people just literally like standing up, passed out, some of those are nodding off. Some of the ones that literally you'll see in just the weirdest positions crashed out, that's stuff that's laced with xylazine. That's the new deal. This is what's causing a bunch of the overdoses in Philadelphia. Let's see if we can get through this one without a strike and or being demonetized, because some of the content in this is it's a little bit tough, but it's what's going on, and that's why we need to get into it. Let's see what the dealio is. Let's talk about it. Xylazine. Terrifying flesh-eating drug meant for horses that is now hitting the streets of America. Tranq dope, xylazine, accounts for 1/3 of OD deaths in Philadelphia and causes festering wounds when injected. That is the title. Maybe this is, I'm going to give you a heads up. Maybe don't be eating a snack during this. Or if you got a strong stomach, I'd say go for it. I would. I'd just be like, I'm going to eat my potato chips. I'm going to eat my whatever. I don't really care what you say. It's not going to make me nauseous. Oh, yeah. Okay. You get one of those clips and you're like, oh, good Lord, that's not good. Health officials are warning of a terrifying flesh-eating drug. I love anything by the Daily Mail. It's so dramatic. A terrifying flesh-eating drug, which is being increasingly found laced into heroin, cocaine, and other narcotics. All right. It's not funny at all. But it's one of those things where you're like, why are these people in Philadelphia a whole nother level of zombie? You got it. Xylazine. And when you see what they look like physically, you look at their legs, guys in shorts, and you're like, oh my gosh, they are literally rotting from the inside out. It's gross. That's leading to a soaring number of drug overdoses across the country. Doctors say xylazine, a muscle relaxant intended for large animals like horses, has been appearing in the illicit drug scene in cities across the U.S., joining fentanyl as one of the primary narcotics used to cut opioids. All right. So it works because number one, it is a horse. I think it's fairly easy to get. Am I wrong there? I think it's pretty easy to get. It's not regulated as a drug because it's meant for horses, large animals, like maybe a bear. I don't know. Maybe what else is big? Zebra? Okay. It's been appearing in the illicit drug scene in U.S. across the cities, joining fentanyl. So they're using it to cut, like heroin or whatever. And fentanyl has been used to cut as well. And that's why fentanyl is so strong. It's just killing people. With this xylazine, it just has this nasty effect on people and just takes them down. You watch any of those Kensington Avenue. I know you have. Don't lie and say you haven't watched a single Kensington Avenue video. And if you haven't, you need to, just from the standpoint of knowing what we're talking about. Just go Google Kensington Avenue YouTube, and you'll see what I'm talking about. It's a whole nother level. You got people in Seattle and Portland and Skid Row and, that kind of thing. Zombies walking around, cracked out, whatever, meth, fentanyl. They're just whacked out of their minds. Then you've got these folks in Kensington Avenue that are just whole nother level of, is that a human being or is that literally a zombie skeleton walking down the street? Because that's what they look like. They're just, it's amazing that these are humans doing this to themselves. And that's why it's so sad, because, at some point in time, that's somebody's kid, that's somebody's son, that's somebody's daughter. Maybe they have kids of their own, you don't know, but then they go down these roads and they've got access to these crazy drugs that are out now that are literally taking people down, left and right, right? The drug prolongs the highs from heroin, but results in users passing out for hours at a time, leaving them just completely vulnerable. You know, when you see somebody whacked out for a long time, oftentimes you think, oh, they're probably just boozed up. And they've taken something else that literally just puts them out. While injection points ulcerate and lead to grisly wounds that spread across the body. That's pleasant, isn't it? So it's not enough that can kill you on, overdose, but where you put it in, it ulcerates, meaning it just kind of festers up and, it's a skin ulcer. I don't know if you know what those look like. Not good. Not good. Don't put that on your list of things to do today. Get skin ulcer. Hard no-go. Some users even report severe sores erupting across their body where they never injected the drug. That's some of the stuff that I've seen, and I'm like, you wouldn't shoot up in that portion of your body. What do you even, like on your shin? It's not a standard shoot up site. In between your toes, yeah. Crazy, right? So where they never injected the drug, and many are left disfigured as fingers, arms, feet, legs, and toes are forced to be amputated. Not good. It's eating away at my skin, said a 28-year-old female user from Philadelphia. Sam Brennan told Vice. In Philadelphia, considered to be ground zero for the xylazine crisis, about 1/3 of all fentanyl opioid overdoses in 2019 were related to the drug. And that's where I literally heard about this for the first time. I'd watched video after video because I watch those videos and I look at the cities and I look at the businesses and I look at the commerce going on because that's just what comes to me naturally. And then I look at the people after that. So I'm looking in the background. All right, I got these crazy zombies and they're half dead. And then you've got these buildings and stuff. And I look at the businesses that are open. I look at all the businesses that are gone. And that's kind of the stuff I look at because that to me is like, all right, this is the whole picture. This was an area at one point in time that was busy, had a lot of people coming to it that weren't zombies. How did it get that way? And then you start looking at the people and you look at the drugs. And I kept hearing of this drug, xylazine. This has probably been in about the last year or so. I'm like, really? I mean, these people seem really, really whacked out. Really whacked out. And they are, because they've got this stuff that's being cut with xylazine. But because xylazine isn't itself an opioid, doctors warn that many hospitals don't know what they're seeing when they see an overdose victim comes in and cannot detect it in tests and are unable to treat patients that way that they would normally treat as an opioid overdose. So this synthetic stuff that's coming out, because it doesn't necessarily have opioid in it, doesn't have opioid traces or anything, you can literally have somebody like an hour before they go into the hospital to take a drug test, smoke up just a batch full. And then you watch a nurse administer, drug blood draw, and they go down that road. And then it comes back negative. And you're like, oh, okay. What the F just happened? Now it's synthetic. And as stuff comes up, they don't have the ability to test for it necessarily, depending on what, drug testing they're doing. And I've watched that happen. I have seen that happen. And you're like, what's going on here? Yeah, the drug testing that they have going on doesn't necessarily reflect the most current of the synthetic makeup of drugs. And I'm not a doctor, and I'm not a drug specialist, and I'm not a detox specialist, but I've watched this happen in person. And it's pretty wild because you're like, okay, yeah, I get what you're saying. I get that you're saying that this person has clean urine test, but that is not the case. That is not what we've got going on over here. So what's the dealio? Yeah, literally that goes on. A drug and alcohol dependence study conducted across 10 cities found that in 2015, xylazine accounted for a mere 0.36%. 1/3 of all fatal overdoses in 2015. By 2020, however, that number had soared to 6.7%. And from what I understand, Philadelphia, Kensington Avenue was literally ground zero for this to happen. So it doesn't surprise me because even fentanyl in 2018 wasn't really a known quantity. It was out there, but it wasn't known what was going on. And then you saw the overdose numbers start to come in and you're like, what's going on here? And then it kind of came out, okay, they're smoking the blues, they're smoking the M30s, the synthetic opioids opioid, they're the fake pills, right? Made in China, come up through the southern border, get sold here. And they're killing people left and right because they're not exactly dosed correctly. And they're so strong, the fentanyl is so strong that it doesn't take much and it puts somebody out. And that's why we've got Narcan and all this stuff where you're giving them the big old needle to the chest, Pulp Fiction style, right? I mean, horrible. And yet this is going on the regular. Do you remember when that movie came out and you thought, I'd never have to do that. I just don't, associate with those folks. Now they're handing it out in our libraries. They're handing it out to bar owners. They're handing out Narcan to people in all walks of life. Police have it. They got the sniffer stuff, put up somebody's nose to bring them back from a drug OD, Pulp Fiction style. Maybe not with a massive Eric Schultz to the chest with the needle. And then who was it? I think it was Uma Thurman. Just wakes up. Oh, yeah. Not good. Not good. Unfortunately, so many people don't have that opportunity to get to that point where they go, oh, because they're dead. And it's not just Philly, which is reporting a frightening xylazine presence. The Massachusetts drug data supply stream detected it in 28% of drug sample tests and as much as 75% in Western Massachusetts. So it definitely seems like it is an East Coast deal right now, right? Isn't it interesting how we had crack enter, I think it was LA. Was it LA? Inner city LA? That started off? Or was it like Detroit or somewhere? I remember when crack kind of came out and you're like, that's pretty far away from here. What's going on there? It's weird. It seems like it just gets introduced into a community and then it goes. I'm sure you'll let me know in the comments about crack and where that came from. So the increasing proliferation of xylazine looks frightening like the rise of fentanyl in the United States. It feels like this is like, 2.0 of fentanyl, doesn't it? It's synthetic. They use it to cut stuff, probably cheap. I don't really know. My xylazine knowledge is about that much, literally. I've just watched it on a bunch of stuff and I'm like, xylazine, that can't be good. And it's grown from relative obscurity to dominating overdose statistics over the last 10 years. Fentanyl. According to the National Institute of Drug Abuse, fentanyl-related deaths rose from 14.3% in 2010 to 59% by 2017. I wonder what that stat is now. Fentanyl's got to be responsible for just a ton of what's going on. And, what's interesting is that very rarely do you see heroin overdose. You just don't see that anymore, do you? See meth overdose fairly often, but straight up heroin, don't see it. Don't see it. It's always indicated as fentanyl. Maybe that's because, they cut it with a little bit of fentanyl and that's what they blame, but it's wild how this stuff kind of goes in waves, doesn't it? Philadelphia has seen frightening increases in amputations, tissue wounds, and bone disease, rise in conjunction with the prevalence of xylazine. City's health department has seen a 20% rise in bone disease since xylazine came to dominate the drug scene, and soft tissue rounds have climbed 5%. It's just a terrible drug. That's the bottom line here, right? But I think you need to know that it's out there and it's what's happening from the standpoint of, all right, yeah, somebody in your sphere, for whatever reason, start talking to somebody and they don't know what the deal is. Yeah, you got to have a ground point for something because at some point in time, it's going to impact your life somewhere, somehow. That's kind of the way I approach it. So the more you know about it, you don't have to go out and do it. The more you know about it, you're like, okay, yeah, maybe down the road, even with just having the conversation with somebody. Oh yeah, that's probably xylazine. People will be like, what? Because it sounds weird, doesn't it? Tranq dope, xylazine. Because it sounds like almost like a musical instrument, doesn't it? Hey, you play the xylazine? Yes, I do. How well? Oh, I'm pro level. Nah, it's not a joking matter because, you got people just ODing, terrible sores on their skin, wrecking their life. I mean, and some of these folks that you see, I watch a lot of Soft White Underbelly because that guy has got some, he's got some people on there that you're like, I have never seen an individual like that. I didn't even know they made individuals like that. He's got people on that he interviews from that standpoint. And he's such a great interviewer and such a great channel. And yet he is getting demonetized heavily, just like other channels out there that may or may not have taken a strike recently that cover some of these topics. And, you know, I've heard him talk about, this is Soft White Underbelly, the fact that he's getting demonetized as well, because these are tough topics to talk about. You want to talk about festering open wounds and, you know, people dying from drug overdoses. You know, it's not exactly family-friendly stuff, right? But I think it's super important because this is what's going on. And these are the epidemics that are impacting people's lives. And so the more you know about it, I think the better off people are. The more information that's out there, I think, you know, that's how we all kind of work together. Hopefully, that's my glass half full, you know, standpoint. And when you run into one of these things, you're like, you know, maybe somebody's kid had some weird drug experience and you're like, oh yeah, it could be xylazine. Ask them if they think it's caught. Ask them if they know where they got it. You know, try and work that backwards because it's out there. It's out there and it's happening, not just in Philadelphia and these other East Coast cities. Guaranteed. Be coming to the West Coast anytime, you know, anytime in a city near you. That's a horrible, horrible thing. But, you know, that kind of thing hits Portland, hits Seattle, it's game on because we've already got such an opioid, you know, issue, a fentanyl issue here because it's always been a thing. Heroin's always been a thing. How many famous musicians have we lost that went down that road and just, you know, they're no longer with us, and musicians, you know, are people's kids as well. So, all right, that's it. Xylazine. That's your new word to check out and just kind of be aware of, I guess. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks so much for supporting. I'll catch up with you in the next one. Bye for now.